right, everybody, let's get into it here on a Thursday, our little Friday, as we like to call it here. Got a great show for you loaded up today. Want to make sure we get to it, but we want to start with a big recruiting announcement. Five-star quarterback Julian JuJu Lewis made his commitment today live on the Pat McAfee Show. Really good business decision for both entities here. Let's play this clip, and then, again, it's obviously about recruiting, but there's kind of a bigger narrative that's going along with it. Let's go ahead and play this clip from earlier today when he committed to Colorado and Coach Prime live on the Pat McAfee Show. Let's go ahead and play it.
Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Julian JuJu Lewis will be playing football for whom next year, brother?
I will be continuing my athletic and academic career at
Here we go, full
the University of Colorado.
Okay. Congratulations. We're incredibly proud of you. We're pumped for you that you were able to make this decision.
Well, first off, it's a huge get for Colorado.
Yeah.
You got to give credit where credit is due once again. And the good news just seems to be waterfalling in Boulder right now, and good for them. It's good for college football in general. But the bigger narrative, and I've seen this being talked about, and Coney, I'll throw it over to you first, is does this mean that Deion Sanders is definitely staying at Colorado? Mm-hmm. Do you think this signals that, hey, I'm not going anywhere?
Well, I think it's huge no matter what happens because it gives him a little bit of leverage, and it sort of fights off any, narrative that he was just able to coach his own son once his son got to college age and playing. And look, I wouldn't blame him if he follows Shedeur wherever he goes. I've said that's most likely what's going to happen for a while now. But I think this is huge no matter any way you slice it. There was 3 points that I wrote down specifically. One, committing is not signing. The kid was already committed elsewhere. So it's not like he signed. And obviously the order of operations on how this works, whether Colorado makes the playoff, whether Deion Sanders needs to make a decision before signing day on where he's going to be, all that's going to play into this over the next month. 2, I no longer think it's unrealistic for Deion Sanders to get an NFL job offer. 1, with how many former players we're seeing already coaching when you talk about Dan Campbell's success, or even Antonio Pierce getting several seasons now. I don't think it's out of the question for Deion Sanders to get that offer. 1, just because of the public relations that he brings and the marketing exposure that he brings. But 2, your son is most likely going to be a top 5, top 10 pick right now. Certainly there's something to be worked out there. So really that just leaves the question, would he leave for the NFL or would he leave for a bigger brand in college football? I don't know. I mean, his best asset is to do this right here, to recruit kids to come play for him, which you do better in college. Certainly you can have some free agent signings in the NFL, but it's different when guys are under contract. Would he leave for the NFL? I think the answer is still yes. Would he leave for a bigger college brand? I don't know if you need to now.
Yeah, and again, I hate, and there'll be people that'll be like, oh, well, something good happens for Colorado, and everybody talks about Deion leaving. I understand being upset about that, but it's still like a reality that needs to be talked about. Again, the buckets that are laid out is, 1, it doesn't, as far as JuJu Lewis being with Prime, if he goes to another college or something like that, which, again, I think he's going to end up staying at Colorado at the end of the day, even with Shedeur and Shiloh and them leaving. But even if he does go to another college, JuJu Lewis is going to go with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, we literally saw him take his son and Travis Hunter from Jackson State to Colorado, and in the transfer portal era, you can really do whatever you want. So I don't even think that's the question. The question is the one you brought up. And Blaine, there's been talk about the Cowboys, and if Mike McCarthy gets fired, would Jerry Jones hire Deion Sanders? I don't think he would, because Deion's a bigger name than him, and I think it's about Jerry more than it's about the Cowboys when it comes down to who's the head honcho there and who's the most popular, even though Jerry Jones hasn't been popular, I think, with the Dallas Cowboy fans for a long time. But again, this is such it's a great get for Colorado. I thought the graphic of Shedeur handing the keys off to JuJu Lewis was a cool one, was well thought out, was good in the PR game. But Deion Sanders, again, man, we asked what happens when his sons leave. It looks like he can keep bringing in the talent.
Well, I think a couple things can be true at once here. I can think that Mike McCarthy is going to be fired at the Cowboys, and I think Deion's too big of a name to go to Dallas. Jerry wants a guy that he can at least control a little bit, and Deion's not that guy. I don't see Deion at another college coaching other than Colorado. So right now, if he were to go to the NFL, if we look at the mock drafts, Shedeur's slanted to go to the Giants, right, with that 5th pick or 4th pick technically. So do you see Deion being able to go to New York and take that job? Right now with the way the Giants are looking, I mean, Daniel Jones is playing scout safety for $40 million. So
Looking at it, and I'll go back to what I said at the beginning, I think if Prime leaves, because I don't think Florida State's going to fire Mike Norvell, not this year at least. So I think if Prime does leave, it would be to the NFL. But again, I will sit here and say I think there's a lot better chance that he ends up somewhere outside of Dallas if he does go to the NFL, as opposed to being in Dallas. I was on Talk Sports overseas talking about this. They asked me, again, Jerry Jones is about it for himself. But, man, if you're Colorado, and now it makes it so much easier to, not that it was hard in the first place with Prime there, but bring in other good players in this class from the high school ranks, because they want to play with the top quarterback. We see this happen all the time. It's kind of a vacuum that gets created. But I tell you what, it's nothing but good news in Boulder.
And Travis Hunter did announce that he is going to the NFL.
And he should.
He's going. It was a little weird to announce it with several. I mean, you got a big game coming up, and you still got the college football playoff ahead of you. But, look, that's just the way they do things. So he did officially announce that. One more point on with the JuJu Lewis. So you think that, I mean, it seems that obvious that JuJu Lewis would flip his commitment, right? Like, that's what we said about Travis Hunter the second that happened when he was going to Colorado. Yeah.
I think JuJu's more attached to Prime than he is Colorado, but Colorado.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's his appeal in the college game.
Yeah, without a doubt. What's the poll today?
The poll is, will Ryan Day be the head coach of Ohio State next year?
Ooh, speaking of that, Ryan Day leads Ohio State into its third top 5 matchup this season. We break down the strength of schedule for each of the top 12 teams, and you will be surprised. And we're going to give you our best bets for the weekend on locks, leans, and dogs. I'm Jake Crain, and welcome to the thirstiest of Thursdays here at Crain & Company. The odds of Ohio State losing to Indiana this weekend aren't super high, but it's still a possibility. Like the kid from Angels in the Outfield said, it could happen. So what would have to happen for Ryan Day to stay in the good graces of Buckeye Nation if they do lose this Saturday after basically using the GDP of an undeveloped country to construct this roster? Well, to me, you obviously have to beat Michigan, and then a 10-2 Ohio State will make the playoff. They could possibly host, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. In my opinion, you have to at least make the national title game if you lose to Indiana. Anything short of that could wind up with him moving on to another destination, whether it be in college, as a head coach, or an OC in the NFL. You see, Ohio State is one of the golden egg locations in college football. And after suffering a lack of championships and losing to Harbaugh and Michigan so many times here recently, tensions do seem to be super high around Ryan Day. And they should be. Because anything less than excellence is failure in Columbus. And when you operate a machine like Ohio State, you better get big results pretty consistently. And that has been lacking, even with all the advantages that are built in. But I want to know in the comments if you agree with what Day has to do if they lose to Curt Cignetti in Indiana this weekend, because it's a tall task regardless. David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, knows a little bit about the Big Ten, and deep down, I don't think he'd hate to see Ohio State lose this weekend. My brother, former Western State Colorado wide receiver Blaine Crain. Coney, we were looking at the contract, but before we get into kind of what you think, and I'm pretty sure me and you are aligned in this, I think Blaine is too, and what he would have to do if they lose this game. Can you kind of give us the details quickly of Ryan Day's contract with Ohio State and what the buyout would be?
Yeah, so he signed a 7-year deal that's good through 2028, and the buyout would be $37 million. Ooh. So I have a hard time believing that the Buckeyes are going to pay a $37 million buyout for a coach who would still, in this scenario, have won 10 games and possibly make the college football playoff. The interesting thing is you have Indiana and Michigan back-to-back, and the top 5 matchup for the first time in a couple years is not Michigan, it's Indiana. So, look, let's see how they perform this weekend. Buckeyes are a really tough team to beat in the horseshoe. And then, more importantly, let's see what happens next week. Is there a possible slip-up against your arch rival? And I think that's another thing for Buckeye fans. It's not just the lack of national championships that Ryan Day's been able to win, but you haven't been beating your arch rival, and you've had really, really, really good players. Top 10 picks every single season, and Michigan, your rival, has out-physicaled you. How does that change now that Jim Harbaugh has departed for the NFL? So I think that's what a lot of Buckeyes are really anticipating, really looking forward to seeing. I just have a hard time believing they're going to pay a $37 million buyout for a coach who still wins double-digit games and is top 5 in win percentage.
Yeah, and I think, and this is an obvious statement, but if you beat Indiana, It would be more devastating if you lost to Michigan than if you lost to Indiana and then beat beat Indiana and then lost to Michigan, as opposed to losing to Indiana and beating Michigan. I mean, I know what Ohio State fans want. I wonder, though.
Well, that would still keep you in the Big Ten championship.
It would still.
That would still give you, like, what happens if they beat Indiana, have the head-to-head tiebreaker, go lose to Michigan, they're 10-2, go to the Big Ten championship game with a rematch against Oregon, beat them in a rematch. They're the 2 overall seed in the college football playoff. Make a run there and win, or possibly lose a national championship.
Yeah, it's just, I wonder how that would, work out, obviously, with Michigan not being in the mix. I mean, if Ohio State loses this game to Indiana, that gives you 2 conference losses. Indiana, even though they lost to Ohio State, if they win their last game, they would end up higher in the pecking order, and then you have Penn State there as well.
In that scenario, you'd need help from Penn State because your tiebreaker wouldn't kick in. But, hey, they go on the road and play Minnesota.
That is true. I think they're 11-point favorites. But, Blaine, do you see Ohio State, if they were to lose to Indiana or Michigan, going the route of their rival and what Michigan did to Jim Harbaugh, where you walk in and say, hey, listen, we need to talk about this contract, maybe get some money back, maybe reduce the buyout, and then you're really on the hot seat for that next year, even though you'll be able to probably construct a really good roster.
How much money do they pay for this roster?
Like $20 million?
$20 million? And I heard it's maybe even north of that. Look, I could go coach Ohio State right now and win 10 games. With the athletes they have running around the field, I don't even think they need a football coach. Sooner or later, Ryan Day is going to have to win something important, because those Ohio State fans are not going to sit around and wait for it to happen. With the athletes that you have walking around that football field, and the fact that you haven't won a natty, to me, is almost questionable in the decision. You're lucky Harbaugh is in the NFL because he was mopping you with less talent. So at some point, you paid all this money, and if you lose to Indiana this weekend, Kirk Cignetti and Mom Spaghetti come up there with a bunch of I wouldn't say nobodies, but guys who aren't making a lot of money to beat that roster, those Ohio State fans are going to let loose. And look, if you can pay $20 million for a roster, that $37 million buyout might not hurt as bad.
Well, and also, let's add context to this. Michigan is coming off an undefeated season where they won the national championship. I mean, you go back, and the way I think about it is, I'll give you a great example. In basketball, Auburn basketball makes the Final Four, then all of a sudden Alabama starts taking basketball super seriously. There's something in the realm of that rivalry where when the other team does something really good, it does nothing but amplify the need for you to go in and make a big splash. I think it's not that Ohio State wouldn't have paid money to get this great roster, but I think some of what went to building this roster and that money was, hey, Michigan just went undefeated and won a national championship. We need to figure this out, even if we got to just buy the best talent.
Without a doubt. And Blaine, you made a couple great points. One, you spent $20 million at least, right, on your roster, and the expectations aren't going to change in Columbus. The expectations are national championships. The 2 guys before you did that, Urban Meyer won one, Jim Tressel won a national championship, so that's not going to change. It's just, in a year, the landscape is a bit different now with the 12-team playoff. So, yeah, they could lose to Indiana, and that's a bad look traditionally, but you could still make the college football playoff and possibly win the national championship.
What's acceptable? If you're an Ohio State fan.
That's my question.
And how, say you don't win the Big Ten, okay, but you still make the playoffs. How far can you go to where Ohio State fans would be like, you know what? We had a damn good year.
I think it's a national championship.
I
think they'd still be pissed.
Is it the semis?
You got to win that, and there's some Buckeyes fans who that's still not good enough because you didn't win your league, which is what we were talking about with conference championship games this year. But you win the national championship.
It's all cured.
Everyone Columbus can be excited, especially if you do it on the heels of Michigan winning one. But yeah, I think that, you make a couple good points there with the expectations for the fans. They're not going to change. And if you don't win the national championship in a year when you spent $20 million, yes, the Buckeyes fans are not going to be happy. I just want everyone to keep in mind, the fans don't make the decision on whether or not Ryan Day keeps his job.
Who has more patience
so it's the administration.
as a fan base, Ohio State or Penn State?
Oh,
Penn State.
Got to be Penn State, right?
I mean, they're both super high, but if we're going to split hairs, it's going to be Penn State.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
sooner or later, James Franklin's got to win something important too, right?
Yeah, we'll see. I think he's going to get a shot with the way this works out. All right, let's get to the chat. Remember, the phone line's going to open here at 2:45 p.m. Central. That's about 31 minutes from now, if my math is correct. 1-855-236-3228. We appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Remember, without you, there is no us. All right,
absolutely. Chat, what is up? Get those feet chopping. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. We're going to start our day off with a little Colorado Buffalo fan here. CD says, for all the Ryan Day haters out there, I got to say, is look what happened to Nebraska after they fired Frank Solich and Bo Pelini. It's an endless pit of hell. You do not want to wade in those waters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like, look at what Ohio State did before Ryan Day. I mean, Nebraska hadn't won a national championship a long time before Solich was even there. I think that's apples and oranges because Urban Meyer dominated at Ohio State, and we saw it. So I think it's a little bit different. And I still think Ohio State, and I got a lot of respect for Nebraska, there's a lot of top-notch college football coaches that would knock the door down to go coach at Ohio State because of those built-in advantages. So I think there's a little bit of a difference.
The counter scenario, and he's exactly right, but the counter scenario to that is look what Georgia did after they moved on from Mark Richt. And there's some similarities with Mark Richt and Ryan Day. Mark Richt was a heck of a football coach and did it the right way. Why was he penalized? Didn't win a national championship. Won the SEC, not the national championship. Kirby Smart comes in, he's got 2 now.
I think that's a better
All right, let's go to the winners. He says, if we lose to Michigan again, I want Urban back. Do you think we'd offer him the job?
Wait, is that a Michigan fan?
I don't know. His name's Winners.
I mean, look, I don't think it'd be crazy get the band back together. It obviously worked. It's just I don't know the inner workings of the Ohio State administration enough to. I know it. Like at Arkansas, they hired Bobby Petrino back. Like at some point, you can only sit here and say morality. If you're losing, eventually there's a point to where you're like, look, everybody loves a comeback story. He's fixed his ways. He's not hanging out at sports bars anymore. Bobby Petrino isn't riding motorcycles around volleyball practice anymore. I do think there's a limit where fans will say, you know what? You know, at the end of the day, we see this in politics sometimes. Just get the job done. Just get the job done. We'll win because winning does cure everything.
I still think Urban's going to coach college football again.
I still think so,
I really
too.
think so, man.
I think so as well.
All right, let's go to that guy outside. What's up, man? He says, Ohio State first and Indiana second are both my adopted teams. This will be a fun game. It's supposed to win either way, but would definitely be a disappointment for Ohio. I suspect they'll be giving away a lot of yardage to Indiana on flags. The absurd fall of Michigan without Harbaugh now means Indiana could be Ohio's stiffest competition next to Oregon, and even Oregon was a loss of unforced errors. Ryan Day has to win this game against Indiana.
I mean, it puts him, again, either, what did 50 Cent say, get rich or die trying? I think, you don't win this one and you're not in that Big Ten championship game, which you're most likely probably not if you don't win this one. You better win the whole shebang or get really, really close to doing it.
Let's go to TNL. What's up, man? He says, losing Indiana, in my opinion, would sink Ryan Day's ship. There is no coming back after that.
Well, it's, again, you would get your chance in the playoff, even if they finish 10-2, but would Ohio State pay that $37 million buyout to get Ryan Day out to bring another guy in? Because if you are going to do that, right, because it's not like Ryan Day's been awful, but if you are going to do that, you better have an amazing plan going forward to bring in somebody that can do it, and it better be a big name. There shouldn't be any, I hope this guy's going to work out. It's going to have to be a big name.
How far do they fall if they lose to Indiana? I mean, assuming that everyone else right here holds serve.
Well, that's a great segue. Let's go ahead and get the graphic up of the strength of schedule. And right before we get into that, though, I want to let you guys know you need to head over to the Daily Wire shop. If you're tired of the big corporations pushing their progressive agenda, the Daily Wire shop is your holiday gift headquarters. You can get the perfect stocking stuffers, gifts for your church friends, and hot items for holiday gift exchanges for under $30. You can shop our Crain & Company collection for mugs, shirts, hoodies, and cool, delicious-smelling candles like this Flaming Dragon one, and even merch like jerseys from Lady Ballers, so you can walk around and really put a stamp on keeping men out of sports. Also, you can score up to 40% off and grab some exclusive holiday bundles as well. It is a really, really good deal. So get ahead on your list. Go to dailywire.com/shop. I promise you will enjoy the selection. But speaking about selection, all right, this puts a great perspective on the rankings and the importance of strength of schedule, because when you look at this, and this is from our friends over at On3, and I'll just read the top 15 teams and their strength of schedule. I mean, it's hard not to look at this and say it's not the thing that's the most forefront in the committee's mind. You've got Oregon at 43, Ohio State at 28, Texas at 38, Penn State at 35, Indiana at 106, Notre Dame at 82, Bama at 16, Miami at 54, Ole Miss at 29, Georgia at 1, Tennessee at 17, and Boise State at 72. 7. David, when you look at this and you look at the rankings, and again, look, Indiana's still got to play Ohio State. Army's sitting down there with the 133rd ranked strength of schedule, which is really bad, but they're going to play Notre Dame, so it's going to help. I mean, what does this tell you if you're a head coach scheduling non-conference games that you have control of? Why would I ever schedule anybody worth a flip out of conference if it's not going to matter?
Because you're a football coach and you want the smoke and you want to line up toe-to-toe against a worthy adversary and all those kinds of things. But to your point of the strength of schedule is first and foremost on everyone's mind, that's because the Southeastern Conference is running a great propaganda campaign, in my opinion. So, again, the criteria changes based off what the needs are every season. If you got a couple top teams up there that are undefeated in your conference and you want them in, then we constantly hear the phrase, win and you're in. Remember how many times we heard that? Win and you're in. When you're in. Well, now that you have a couple teams that have losses, well, now the conversation needs to pivot to strength of schedule. Or if we need the other team in the ACC whose quarterback's out, then we're going to go down ballot and pick, hey, your quarterback's out, so you can't make it. So anyway, all that to say, strength of schedule is still determined by someone. Someone gets to determine a subjective strength of schedule on the teams that you're playing. And I keep asking who's deciding this?
Or what?
And at what point? And what's the final one? Do we take the strength of schedule at the very end of the year? I think that's the best way to do it if we're going to do it. So I did a little research here and I came up with the college football playoff outsources data that they get here from the strength of schedule from Sports Source Analytics. And we've heard that company a couple times this year. Remember when we talk about conference tiebreakers, and there's a couple different conferences that use Sports Source Analytics. But get this, guys, the data is not available to the public, as if the committee could do anything transparent to help us out here. Oh. But, so as a result, ESPN and its FPI is a way to gauge the caliber of each team's opponents ahead of Week 13, which is what we are here. So this is coming from ESPN and FPI. Does that mean there's some grand conspiracy theory to help out teams and programs that ESPN has television rights deals? No, it doesn't. But I do think that people at home, before they start going around their office in the water cooler and spouting, oh, well, Indiana has the 106 ranked streaks of schedule, they at least need to know what companies are coming up with this.
So, but my question is, why is the data not This isn't what goes on at Area 51. This isn't what we're planning to do if Russia attacks.
You can't have it.
The college football playoff committee doesn't care about college football fans.
Well, again, they don't have to, obviously, when you look at the numbers. But again, what is making this? And I'm not well versed on the law of you have to release these numbers. But what would be the thinking behind not releasing it outside of creating a conspiracy theory? David, this is my point I was making yesterday.
It's unacceptable.
By you saying that, to me, just being a common sense, no nonsense type of person and thinker when I come to analyzing this, that creates a variant of something is up. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute, you're not going to show me the data from the what did you say the name of the company was?
Sports Source Analytics.
From the Sports Source Analytics that does the strength of schedule. But hey, I can look at ESPN,
this comes from
FPI
ESPN.
That's in bed with us. And look, I'm from Auburn, Alabama. I'm an SEC guy, but Blaine, why would you not make that data public? Who decides, guys, they don't need to see this because, maybe, just maybe, they don't even have data. Maybe they don't even have
Jake, the committee's right, no matter what it is, and you're wrong. You're wrong. No matter what the committee can close the doors. No one can get a camera in there, an audio recorder, whatever the committee comes up with. It doesn't matter what the college football fans think, college football coaches, players. It's 12 guys in a smoky room making decisions that's best for them. Best for what?
Well,
ratings and money.
And again, I'm not the biggest fan of the committee, but did the committee say don't release those numbers to the public? Is it who?
We should call them.
Yeah, who makes that decision at the end of the day?
To me, it'd feel like it would be the committee.
Look, I don't want people to think I'm completely oblivious or disinterested in strength of schedule. I do think that it matters. And if you put Georgia's schedule out in front of me or Indiana's schedule out in front of me and said the main objective in your life right now is to make a postseason invitational, obviously, I would rather play Indiana's schedule. I just hate to see us get to a point in the sport where ADs and coaches are saying, you know what, let's just schedule the easiest games possible. That's not what the sport is about to me, and no other level of football does. The Miami Dolphins can't just decide to play the easiest schedule they want. Yeah. My high school didn't get to collude with other high schools so that we could make a postseason or win the championship. I don't know why college football isn't allowing it. And to be honest, if strength of schedule is just going to be the main factor that we're talking about here, why don't we just seed people based off that? Right now, Mississippi State has the third highest strength of schedule. They're 2-8, but they have the third toughest schedule while playing Eastern Kentucky, UMass, and Toledo. By the way, they lost to Toledo. So why don't we just put them in there?
Well, no, and I totally agree with what you're saying. But I want to make sure and separate it here. And I hate to come on here and air my grievances, but you keep giving us stuff to air grievances about because there's no specificity to it. So I am all for strength of schedule being in the metrics that help you get ranked where you are. One of the ingredients to the recipe. Like, I care about that. But to me, this is like asking me to judge a bake-off, yet not telling me the ingredients that went into the cake. I think it's important that we're able to judge the bake-off fairly, but in order for me to do that, I need to know what gets put into the cake. You have no idea here, and if they just say, you know what, just trust ESPN and the FPI, that's not a good enough answer for me. Why are you bouncing around from this sports analytics company that has the data that could say, you know what, here's what goes into strength of schedule. If you want me to care about strength of schedule, tell me what's in it, and I will go to the forefront, and I will fight with you that should be one of the main sources of information that ends up with people being ranked where they are. But when you cloak this in non-transparency, when you cloak this in, no, we're not going to release the data to the public. It's like, what? So what's going to be compromised? Mm-hmm. What would be compromised if you release that data? Again, we're not telling you where our secret naval bases are in Antarctica. I'm confused about that.
I know it'll be compromised. It's what the committee doesn't want you to see, what you already know, guys. It's a money grab. It's a money play. They're going to make the best decision if they can squeak it through for the best ratings and the best money. So, that's why they didn't put Florida State in the playoff, because Jordan Travis might have got hurt, but they knew an Alabama team, if you put them in there, it's going to have better ratings, it's going to make you more money, which ended up being the right decision. But I'm telling you, there's a reason why they won't. It's like when Voldemort met with all his people in Harry Potter.
I don't think it's as much about the money as it is about power. Because if you have this strength of schedule and you can look at those numbers, why do we need a committee? Mm-hmm. If you have legitimate numbers and metrics like we talked about yesterday, why do I need these people? Like, what, for the eye test? You could talk me into that. Maybe if that's one of the 4 ingredients that go in there and it's the one subjective part of it that you can look at and say, all right, these are people, coaches looking at it, whatever, we can argue that to the end of the day. But this makes it seem like, you know what? Those numbers really don't matter because there may not even be numbers. The only numbers may be ESPN and the FPI. How do we know that this analytics company is even doing any strength of schedule numbers if you're not going to share it with the public and show it to us?
Here's a very practical question here. Let's just take Georgia since they're at number 1 and still ranked 10, by the way, with 2 losses. I'm not sure what all the complaints are about. First off, they could technically still win the SEC and be the number 1 overall seed by the time this thing's said and done, but they could certainly be the 5th seed and host a playoff game, and they're done with SEC play, by the way.
Yep.
Right. They got Georgia Tech coming up, another out-of-conference game. But let's just take Georgia here. Let's say, that win at the beginning over Clemson. What if Clemson moves forward and loses to the Citadel and loses to South Carolina? Mm-hmm. Does Georgia's strength of schedule reflect that because your win over Clemson now isn't as impressive?
To me, it has.
Or does that not change? It only changes when you beat someone who we consider good.
See, to me, in my mind, it would have to, right? I think strength of schedule is an evolving and devolving thing throughout the season, right? Unless there's something I don't know and it's at the time when you play them, and that's the number that's baked in and it never changes. But I would think the thing that makes the most sense, it's like when we're talking about ranked wins, and we've had this conversation before. To me, what qualifies as a ranked win is when we get to the end of the season, if that team is ranked and you beat them, it should be a ranked win. I think those things go hand in hand. But Cone, to be honest with you, I don't know, dude. I don't know. Do they say, hey, at the time when Texas beat Michigan, this was Michigan's strength number. And once you win that game, that's the number and it never changes, which would be wrong in my opinion. But as the teams go throughout their season, whether they do well or whether they do worse should go into that number. David, it's the same question. If Penn State is sitting at, 35.
Correct.
All right. And Indiana is at 106. What's the one main difference that Penn State has that Indiana doesn't? They played Ohio State. Now, I know Penn State played West Virginia the first game of the year, but West Virginia's kind of fallen off a cliff. So just by Indiana playing Ohio State, would they jump up to then having a top 40 strength of schedule? And then on the other hand, like you said, if Clemson loses to the Citadel, does that again knock Georgia down from 1 to maybe, 10 or something like that? I don't know.
I mean, Florida State has the 9th toughest schedule in the country. They've won 1 football game. Georgia, you have the 1st toughest schedule, and you've only lost 2. Like, some teams navigate their tough schedules differently, right? And so I just don't understand why we're getting to the scenario where strength of schedule now usurps your record. It's not just like one metric that we're considering. I'm hearing people, I'm having SEC fans on social media tweet at me now, no, like our strength of schedule was tougher, so like we need to get 5th, 6th, and 7th spot or whatever for the conference. Like, again, Mississippi State's 3rd, Florida 2nd. Should we just seed it by that?
And the committee doesn't even care. Like, if your schedule's bad, look at BYU.
Who beat SMU.
Third hardest schedule with to SMU's 86 and beat BYU.
How do you square
SMU
that?
head to head?
David, I don't.
How do you square that?
How did you get to that point?
David, I don't know how you square that. I don't know how you square saying, all right, if strength of schedule really, really matters, you look at Miami at 54, you look at BYU at 53. I know both of their losses aren't great. We know what Kansas is right now, but SMU is sitting right there at 86. I just don't know how you square that Miami is ahead of them in that way. But why can't we just live in a world where, and this is why we opened with what we opened with yesterday, where you know what? It's 4 metrics and it's 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. Strength of schedule, win-loss record, because losses should matter. The reason we have Indiana so high in our rankings is because they are undefeated. Them and Oregon are the only teams that are undefeated. And when we get in this argument, I can understand why Miami is in front of Ole Miss a lot better than I can understand why SMU is in front of BYU. Because Miami has 1 loss, Ole Miss has 2 losses. I'm fine with that. But I don't think we should say it's all based on this. I think it should be cut 25, 20, or if you want to do thirds, 33.3%, 33.3%, 33.3%. That's about as far as my math knowledge goes. I don't understand. It could be so much easier. And again, like we talked about yesterday, this cloak on how you get where you get to creates these conspiracy theories. And then when you dig deeper into it, and David Cohn comes on here and goes, hey guys, the sports analytics company is the one that's responsible for coming up with the strength of schedule, but they're not going to tell you not only the number, but how they got to that number. That does nothing but, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but damn it, if I look up and I see aliens in the sky one day and then I go to sleep and then I get abducted that night by aliens, you know what I'm probably going to do, guys? I'm probably going to believe in aliens.
But here's the thing. The playoff is still going to be wildly entertaining, and it's going to make a ton of money, and they're going to look at the end and say, why change anything? Why change anything?
Well, again, they look at last year and look at the games we had after leaving Florida State out and then pointed to it and said, yep. But then again, when you can't really screw it up, and I think you made a great point yesterday by saying that, it's damn near impossible to screw this up for a couple reasons. One, the parity's so good this year. You're going to have a bunch of really good teams that we actually think can win the championship, and the on-the-field product is as good as it's been. Maybe this is why they didn't think they had to put rules on NIL. Maybe this is why they think they didn't have to put rules on you could play college for 30 years now, or the transfer portal, there's no rules on it. Because at the end of the day, college football is more popular right now than it has ever been in the history of college football. Just look at it's impossible to mess up. It's like a Snickers bar. It'd be impossible for them to screw up a Snickers bar. You could put peanut butter in it, they've already done it. You can turn it into a brownie, they've already done it. You could probably put caviar in a Snickers and it would still be good. Because college football is like Snickers and Reese's. They're just good. It's just good, and it's almost impossible to screw up unless you do what the NBA did and what the NFL did for a little bit, and you get overtly political to one side. I think that would be the only way that they could screw it up, and college football is a lot smarter than the NFL. They're not going to do that. But let's get to the chat, because it's a legit conversation to be had, I think.
Let's go to Fight On Natties. Welcome to the chat, brother. It says it doesn't matter what your strength of schedule is at the beginning of the season, because just like anything, teams fluctuate during the season. Teams that are projected to be awesome end up tanking it. So I would just wait till the end.
I agree with that 100%, but here's the problem, my friend. They're still not going to tell you what the numbers are at the end and how they got there. So to me, that's, again, I'm all for strength of schedule, and I am with you. I am with you. You got to wait until the end of the year. That's when the picture is actually painted. But if we get to the end of the year And I don't know how you got to where you got to in one of the biggest quote-unquote metrics, which is obviously not true with the committee, but it should be true in strength of schedule, then that's still a problem. The problem is we don't know the numbers that go into it, not just when you calculate it, because it's fun to talk about strength of schedule throughout the year. It's something that's why they have preseason rankings. They really don't matter that much, but we like to talk about it because we love the sport and it's fun.
Let's go to Sir Nix-a-Lot. What's up, man? I think for determining strength of schedule, it should be a combination of final rankings and rankings at the time of the game. If you beat a team that's on a hot streak, you should be rewarded.
Well, it's, to me, and again, I don't disagree with you, but David, what is wrong with just saying, hey, listen, we are not going to evaluate or put the numbers into the computer until we have all of them and it's all done. The minute the regular season gets done being played, we are going to take all the numeric value of each team you played. It doesn't matter if you're in the Power Four. It doesn't matter if you're in the Group of Five. It doesn't matter if you're in the ACC or if you're in the Mountain West. We will take the numerical value of how good each team you played is and how they ended up, plug that into the computer, and let's get a number that we can point at and say, hey, listen, you may disagree, you may not like it, but it's even across the board. So it's we talk about, equity, right? Or treating everything even. This is a way you could do that.
I don't know for sure, but it sounded like his comment was talking about combining two things.
See, I don't think we have to do that.
Well, it is interesting, though, to take an end-of-season strength of schedule, but then also maybe weigh when you played a team a little bit. That is interesting. I'd have to think about it a little bit more because similar to what we were talking about with Texas and Michigan the other day, part of the strength of schedule is you beat the team, right? Like you won against. Yeah. I guess to put it in question form, if I was playing the number 25 ranked team, they're ranked 25th, right? And I beat them, and so I knocked them out to being ranked. Is that a ranked win for me?
See,
right? Because you beat them.
Yeah, you did.
And you're the one who hurt your own strength of schedule, right? By beating them.
As long as there's some numerical value to it and you can show me to it, I'm fine with that. I really don't But when we were talking the other day in our rankings, and we were like, you know what, we're going to look at the SEC standings, and you did that deep dive on, what makes a win when it comes to SEC conference strength of schedule. They didn't factor in whether you were at home or on the road, right? Isn't that what you said? Like they don't factor in whether it's a road game or a home.
You're talking about for the SEC tiebreakers? SEC? Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah, and again, how would you do that? How would you weigh it? Right?
Yeah,
how would you weigh it?
Do you
give an extra point or half point? I don't know. But again, to my question here, and I'm thinking about this stuff in real time, so I'm trying to articulate it right. But again, to Mississippi State, right, ranked has the third toughest schedule. You're 2-8. If you had beaten a lot of those teams you played, do you still have as tough of a schedule because you beat them, and now their strength of schedule is weakened?
Well,
and winning the games weakens your opponent's strength of schedule, right?
No, it does. And you obviously compare it to all the other teams as well that are going through it. So I think there's some way that it balances out. But maybe there is some way to attach a 0.5 on if Texas went to Michigan week 3 and Michigan was ranked 18th and you beat them. You add that 0.5 there onto that game and those things tally up at the end, and you can still use the strength of schedule of how Michigan ended up, but you add that 0.5 because they were ranked at the time. I'm willing to compromise on this, is what I'm saying. Like, I am willing to black eyed peas this thing and meet you halfway if you at least can just say, listen, we're going to bake this cake and everybody's got to eat it. We're all in the bakery together. But here are the ingredients, what we are putting in the cake, and this will help you figure out with us what the outcome is. But when you do that again, and if you say we're going to take win-loss record, like in the nature of this, if you have 3 losses, you cannot get in unless there are more teams with 3 losses, and we are debating between teams with 3 losses to get that final spot. Because there is a cutoff, and I think it's 3 losses this year. Look at South Carolina. South Carolina's sitting there at what? 18? And they got the 8th strength of schedule. If we were having an argument, and there were a bunch of teams that had 3 losses, and there was a 3-loss team that could get in, I think South Carolina having that strength of schedule, if it's done right, is a big deal when compared to 3-loss teams. But we're going to have this argument about 10-2 teams. That's what this is coming down to. There will be a 10-2 team that gets in. There will be 10-2 teams that get left out. It's just when you're not able to see the ingredients that go into the cake, how am I supposed to trust it when I slice that bad boy up, stick the fork in, and take a bite of it to be able to judge it? I can't, because I don't have all the information. But if we did have information that was set on metrics and numerical values, we wouldn't need people. And I think that's what it comes down to. So that's just my opinion.
All right, let's go to Mike. Mike, what's up? He says, I think strength of schedule shouldn't matter as much as strength of record because it shows at the end of the year how tough your schedule was and better demonstrates how good you really are.
So he said strength of record should be better than strength of schedule?
Correct, Coach.
Why can't we just do it evenly? Well, why do we have to weigh things more than the other? That's my thing. That's why, again, yesterday we said we're having the wrong debate. The debate should be what metrics and what values are what matters most when determining who ends up where. I am all for win-loss record. Let's do it, baby. That can be 25%. Strength of schedule can be other 25%. A subjective look at it could be another 25%, and we should figure out what that fourth metric should be, or we should just leave it at 3 and have it even across the board at 33.3%. That it would be so simple.
Let's go to Charles Shaw. What's up, Charles? The strength of schedule at the end of the year does not measure hot streaks like South Carolina or the fact that teams like Florida are a different team with Lagway under center as well.
But doesn't it, though? If you're playing, doesn't it show who you're having the hot streak against by strength of schedule? And then style points, too, could be that fourth.
Well, again, like I said, if Nebraska and Colorado rematch this weekend, I would take Colorado.
100%.
They got crushed by Nebraska.
Yeah.
That's a terrible loss. So, yeah, I understand. You give teams opportunity to grow throughout the season because that's what championship teams do. And if you're going to win the national championship or your conference championship, you have to be better in Week 12 than you were in Week 1. At the same time, how do the games you played in September not matter? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Well, do you want the games not to matter at all?
Well, my thing is, obviously they matter. Look where Boise State is. They lost that game against Oregon early. That should matter, not just because Oregon has done what they've done and they're the number one team in the country, but that's why, if we're going to sit here and say hot streaks, I don't know how you add a numerical element to that. Maybe that's the subjective part. Maybe that's the 25% on the eye test that this team, like Ole Miss right now, we're talking a lot different about Ole Miss than when they lost to Kentucky. But guess what? They still lost to Kentucky.
I'm just watching a lot of people who would otherwise in other scenarios complain about participation trophies. Want a participation trophy.
No, I'm
not wanting to have to go win their conference.
No, look, that should be the ultimate. That should be the ultimate goal. But I think we look at this in a more pure standpoint. I really think we do. And I think it'll just always be that way in this big business type industry.
There's one other example of that is last year, Georgia. Last year was the first time we saw more than 4 teams be able to, I think, win the national championship, and we had 7, right? You had Florida State, who got left out. Say what you will about the quarterback situation, deserved a shot to be in there. Buckeyes only lost to Michigan by 6 points. Georgia only lost the SEC championship game. You get left out. So when Kirby Smart tells the world, put us in a 14 playoff, I think we could beat anyone. I don't doubt him. I think a lot of those teams who made the playoff last year didn't want to see Georgia. But at the same time, if you didn't win your conference, right? What he was saying is put us in any playoff, anywhere on the road, we'll play whatever. I think we could win it. Well, we get to see that this year, right? You're talking about a 2-loss Georgia team. You're right now slated to make the playoff, but still somehow that's not good enough.
Well, you used the Ohio State example yesterday, which I thought was a really good one too. But, this is where I think, and I know we're past the 4-team playoff, but this is where I think having some flexibility, if it's good for all parties. What if last year the committee would have said, you know what? How about we do this? How about we're going to have these 3 teams in? If the argument at the end of the day, it really came down to what? Georgia and Florida State, right? Or it was Alabama, Georgia, and Florida State. But what if we had a way to say, you know what? How about we say, hey, Kirby Smart, and hey, Mike Norvell, how about y'all two? Let's meet up. Y'all two play each other. We got time before this playoff kicks up. Would you agree to do that? I think both coaches would have agreed to do that. But
that's some stuff Dana White would do.
Yeah.
Dana White would do that.
And then you talk about a play-in game for the playoff? Because that's what we're having at the end of the year. Don't get it confused. We are having play-in games right now.
Yeah.
Just like we see it in the NCAA tournament, where you have those games before the official tournament kicks off, when it went from 64 to 68. Well, you got those 4 teams that are, and typically it's like North Carolina A&T's playing Texas A&M Corpus Christi to see who's going to go get destroyed by UConn. But it's still those playing games are awesome, and you could have it at an even higher level. But I think it's a great conversation to have. We're going to keep having it. The phone lines are going to open up in 2 minutes. 1-855-236-3228. We want to hear from you. All we want is for people to be responsible. All right? Not only when it comes to college football playoff rankings or showing us the numbers and strength of schedule, but also taking care of your health. Right? Because if you're not healthy, none of the other stuff matters. And I'm not even talking about Jordan Travis in Florida State. All right, I'm talking about the everyday Joe out there just like us. And right now, if you want a multivitamin that is packed with 33 key ingredients that help sharpen your brain, your immune system, keep you healthy. It's basically good for everything with you when we live in a world where our diets are going downhill because all our food's basically made of stuff we don't even know and is banned by half the countries in Europe. You need a boost. And that's where our friends and us really at Daily Wire has Responsible Man. And we have an early access Black Friday sale. You can get 60% off your order. And look, it's a minty vitamin. All right. It doesn't smell bad. Doesn't feel like it's been smuggled over here, smell like it's been smuggled over here by the cartel or it's been at Geppetto's wood shop for the last 35 years. And you can head over to responsibleman.com right now and use code BOOSTER at checkout. But hurry, that deal won't last long. Remember, gentlemen, a strong America needs strong men, and strong men start with Responsible Man. Head over to responsibleman.com. Use that code BOOSTER. Get 60% off for a 100% healthier day. All right. Speaking about healthy, has this been the hardest year to bet college football?
It's been tough.
I mean, we've done a good job. We're in the green, but
which is entertaining in a different way. If I can't make money off of it, it'd at least be entertaining.
That's exactly
the
right.
Tennessee plus 10.5 hurt me last week.
That was especially after the
that
start.
hurt the kid deep.
That
last
one
week.
barely hit the under. Glad I bought that thing up to 50.5. So here's what we got. Locks, leans, and dogs. Ride with us, people. All right, into the midst of Avalon. Let's do it together. We're either really happy or we're all frustrated. Tennessee, minus 40.5 against UTEP, going off at minus 120. Give me some of that. It's going to be a murder show. Tennessee needs to look good. Don't forget, these coaches don't know. So they're going to score and try and beat teams as badly as possible. I think you could say the same thing with Georgia and UMass. So give me Tennessee minus 40.5 at minus 120. And then Syracuse. Absolutely love them at home this weekend. I bought that bad boy down to 9.5 at minus 130. Jim Mora Jr. hates the referees just like I do, but UConn just not a great football team. And Syracuse got a big one coming up next week against Miami. I just think they're better than UConn overall, and Kyle McCord's going to have a day. And then my leans. Florida plus 11. Why not? I like Ole Miss to win, but I think with DJ Lagway and the confidence and everybody kind of taking a deep breath in Gainesville, now that Billy Napier isn't going anywhere, that could be a bad deep breath, that could be a good deep breath, but at least it gives you some stability. I think Florida's confident right now. I like him to cover that plus 11 at minus 110. Then Ohio State and Indiana, especially now, and I hate it for Seth McLaughlin that he's out the center. That's going to throw a wrench in things for the Buckeyes because you got to kick. Typically, you'd kick a guard over, right, David? That's what people typically do. If you don't want your backup center going in there, kick that guard over. Maybe your backup guard is better than your backup center. I like the under in this game, 51.5. I think Indiana may try and be really methodical and limit possessions here because at worst, it makes the score look closer. And I think that's a win for them, even though Signetti, that's not what he wants. And then my dogs.
What dog is that?
That is Beethoven.
Wow.
Yeah. Great movie. Sad movie. Well, no, that's Marley and Me. Beethoven's a happy movie. Give me UAB money line at plus 190. They're playing Rice. If you can't beat a food, I don't know how to help you. I'm not a big Trent Dilfer guy. And then Kansas money line. Uh-oh.
Really?
All this momentum for Colorado. Hey, you get JuJu Lewis. It's all going great. Kansas, 4-6. Nobody's super duper excited, even though they beat BYU last weekend. I think Kansas finds a way as one of my dogs. Give me the money line plus 120. Jalen Daniels wants to go out with a bang. They're not going to quit. This is one way they could have a big influence on who plays where. And guys, they got to win out to be bowl eligible anyways. So give me Kansas money line at plus 120.
I don't hate that pick. Obviously, Colorado's playing really well, but Kansas back-to-back ranked wins, and they're going to be at home. I think you get good value there with plus money. All right, last week took a couple unders for my locks. Those didn't hit. Did I learn my lesson?
No, you did not.
Texas A&M. Auburn under 46.5, minus 110. Bet. I don't think that that Auburn's just going to put up a whole bunch of points on Texas A&M's defense, but also Texas A&M, you're starting a freshman on the road in Jordan-Hare. I'm thinking maybe it's just kind of ugly. Maybe it stays tight for a little bit. I'm taking the under. Then I'm going to lock in Colorado TTP over 30.5 at minus 130.
I like this.
They've been putting up a bunch of points, and I think if Jake is right and Kansas does win the game, it's going to be in shootout fashion. Obviously, it was a low-scoring affair last week for Kansas, but the week before that, who was it, Iowa State that they beat? That one, I think they gave up 35 points, something like that. I think it's more likely to turn into a shootout regardless of who wins and if the game's close.
And isn't Colorado due for one of those? Like, isn't Colorado due for one of those shootouts?
See, they've been shooting. No one else has been shooting with them, which I think bodes well for Colorado's defense. So either way the game works out there, I like the Colorado TTP. We'll see. Kansas did look looked great on defense last week. Then for my leans, I'm going to take Penn State minus 11 at minus 112 on the odds with a similar line of thinking as to why you're taking Tennessee. Not that playing at Minnesota is some cupcake, but I think Penn State has gotten the message. Hey, we don't have Oregon on our schedule to try and get one of those coveted big wins. You know, we don't get a chance to go play Indiana now. So we lost to the best competition we played in the Buckeyes. Let's finish out the season strong and at least put up as many points and look as crisp as possible doing it.
And David, they're fighting for a host spot too. So
yeah, exactly. And you're going to tell me they wouldn't love a rematch with Ole Miss from last year's Peach Bowl, but to get them up in Happy Valley? Are you kidding me? So I'm not fully convinced right now that Penn State's the number 4 team in the country, but I do like them on the road against Minnesota. I'll take a minus 11. Then how about Bama, Oklahoma under 48? The question to me is how much can Alabama score on that Oklahoma defense? When Brent Venables really gets dialed in, I think he can make things a little complicated, but I don't like Oklahoma's odds to put up a bunch of points on Alabama. I think what would bust it there is like a 35.
Or like the dam breaks in the second half.
Something like that, you know. So that's why I'm leaning on that one and not locking it. So that's under 40 and under 48 minus 131. And then for my dogs, let's go BYU money line plus 136. Look, I love this Arizona State team. I love Kenny Dillingham. But let's be honest, BYU before last week was still the undefeated Cinderella of the season, and they've only lost one game up to this point. So plus 136 on the odds there. I don't think that's bad value at all. My second dog, the Georgia Southern football Eagles money line at Coastal Carolina. Tough loss last week. I think they bounce back.
Yeah, bad loss by Georgia Southern last week. That's a bad Georgia Southern.
Come on, walk with me, guys. Big week. A lot of money is going to get won. Let's go to my locks. Lock it up. I'm taking grenades down here, John. Give me Indiana plus 14 and a half. Minus 135. Jake, I believe the center went out for Ohio State.
Yep.
It's just stacking on top of each other. Signetti and the boys, just be ready for my dogs, too, as well. Then look, hey, man, I love our group of 5 schools, and I love our military schools, all right? Make sure you put that out.
Love the
and
group of 5
everybody
schools,
knows that. But I
love
like Notre Dame in this football games. Minus 13 and a half. That's going off at minus 130. Look, Army, cool story. Like, love you guys. Anything I can do for y'all just let me know. But I think you're about to walk into a buzzsaw in this football game. And then my leans, all right? I love Colorado money line this week. I think it might be the best bet of the weekend. It's kind of scary, I guess, because of what Kansas has done. But they haven't faced firepower like this. And then what Deion say, if you're going to get me, you better get me now, and that time has passed. Give me the Buffs and the boys that go in there and win. And Jake, I'm rolling with you.
Yeah,
Tennessee minus 40 and a half, minus 120 coming off a big loss against Georgia. I feel bad for UTEP for 4
They
quarters.
struggle from offensive
It's not going to be fun
well.
at all. Then my dogs, baby. Give me Kirk Signetti and the boys, all right?
Okay.
Indiana money line plus 375 in your face, Barstool Tate. What does he have to do if he loses this? Who knows? I know it's not great, but I think Signetti and the boys can play with him. Going to surprise a lot of people. But guess who's not going to be surprised? This guy right here. And look, I'm ready to be hurt again, baby. I'm ready to be hurt
Well, I know
again.
one of your picks is
Give me Auburn money line plus 112. You don't walk into Jordan Hare and leave with all your arms and legs, baby. We're going to rip a leg off. We're going to bite a knee on the way up. Peyton Thorne's going to figure it out this football game. I can't wait to cry afterwards as we find a way to lose. But those are my bets this week. Hey, Ted Lasso, right? Believe.
So is Curtis Rourke going to play for Indiana, or is he going to sit this one out? Like
I don't know. Joey Galloway used to play for Ohio State. There's some inside stuff going on. And Justin, can you please post and pin the phone number at the top of the chat? You're going to get 20 up downs after this for not doing that.
Yeah, if I remember, you fold the towels the right way or you get punished. But speaking about punished, all right, before we get to the phone lines, look, we all know if y'all are going to have some libations this weekend. We are too. All right, we actually got a Friendsgiving we're going to, so you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a couple drinks consumed there responsibly. But if you don't want to feel bad the next day, all right, even if you're mixing them, all right, and we know it's like getting hit by a train the next day when you mix alcohols, you need to order some of this magic. And it goes by a name, Z-Biotics. What is Z-Biotics? Blaine asks, confused.
What is Z-Biotics?
Blaine, why are you so confused? I've read this ad read 400 times. Z-Biotics is a pre-alcohol probiotic drink. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Let me make it simple for you. You drink this, and then you drink, and then you don't feel as bad the next day. They tackle rough mornings like you hope your defense tackles the offensive opponent. We kept hearing about this pre-alcohol. We wondered what it was like, how did it taste, and now that we've tried it, We get why everybody is talking about it. It's one of the greatest inventions of our time. Edison has nothing on these guys. And with their GMO technology, ZBiotics is actually continuing to invent probiotics that help with other stuff in your everyday life and the challenges of modern living. So go to zbiotics.com/booster to learn more. Get 15% off your first order when you use Booster at checkout. It's backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they're going to refund your money. That's zbiotics.com/booster. Then use that promo code BOOSTER and get it at checkout for that 15% off. I'm telling you, it's magic. Drink it. It's awesome. All right, David, you tell me when we're ready for phone calls.
All right, lines are full.
Let's get to them. Let's try and go up tempo here, like Georgia should be doing on offense.
Take as long as you can. David loves it when you do.
Stop that. No, don't listen to him. All right, let's get our feet chopping today, and we're going to start with AJ in Valdosta, Georgia. AJ, please tell me you went to Valdosta High School. What's going on?
No, I didn't go to Valdosta High School. My parents did.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a win.
Town USA, baby.
Yeah, they play football down there.
Something to think about, right? Like, we're talking about strength of schedule, and this whole conversation is just incredibly fascinating. But, like, take last year's situation with Florida State where their quarterback gets hurt at the end of the season. Does the committee weigh that when they're given a strength of schedule score? You follow me? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and somebody on social media asked, well, they didn't really ask me. After I gave them my answer, they're like, oh, so you don't know ball. And I just stopped paying attention to them. Yeah, because I'm an adult, all right? Here's where I'm at with that. If we're going to do something like that, it has to be, it's just like losing the conference championship game, and how does that affect you? Come out before the season and say, hey, listen, here's the metrics we're using to grade you and put you where you are. Here are a couple bylaws that could usurp some things if it comes down to a couple teams that could jump. Is there a devastating injury? And then if there is a devastating injury, do you limit that just to the quarterback position? Do we say because again, Seth McLaughlin going out at Ohio State isn't going to knock them out of the playoff, but it's a big deal. Right. Now it's not as big of a deal as Jordan Travis. So do you say, listen, and who knows how good your backup quarterback is? What if your backup quarterback is pretty good too and can come in there and get the job done? So I am
their
of
backup won 2 games last year.
1-2, and then your third string won the ACC championship, if I'm not mistaken, there with Brock Glenn, unless I'm just losing my mind. So I don't want to get down that rabbit hole.
I don't either.
We talk about how football is the ultimate team sport on this show, right? It is a game that is not won by an individual; it's won by a collective. So I don't think if somebody gets hurt toward the end of the year, right, and you keep winning like Florida State did, that should affect you when it comes down to whether you make the playoff or not. Now, where I think you can make a case for it is, let's say we look at these tiebreakers in the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten, there's like 9 of them. And the one you end at is the gas station coin flip. Well, maybe the last one should be, if it is down between 2 teams that are 10-2, and it's equal almost, like there is nothing that makes one jump over the other, maybe having that quarterback get hurt could have an effect on them. But I still would want it written out before the season in very, very specific language to let me know what's going to happen. You know what you might see happen? Maybe these backups get put into the game and there's not taking a knee. Maybe they want to run the offense so that coach can look at the committee at the end of the year and say, what do you mean our season's over? Our backups played, we blew out 4 teams. He played the whole second half. He's got over 1,000 passing yards and 10 touchdowns and 2 picks, and he ran for 400 yards. I want specificity. So that's
anything's better than flipping a coin. I'd rather just see which head coach has been married longer.
I mean, that was a pretty cool part in Friday Night Lights, so we got it.
All right, well, stop it.
50-yard line.
AJ, I love that you're talking about this and bringing. I love that you're bringing this up, though. It's certainly more impressive to beat Alabama when Jalen Milroe plays than if he doesn't play. But we're doing too much.
It'll be
college football. Do less. Yeah. So, sometimes Tom Brady plays and you can't beat him, and sometimes he doesn't play and you get a chance to beat him. This football, man, there's 100 dudes on the team. You know what I mean?
It's so much easier when a computer told us what to do, wasn't it? This is so much easier.
I'm afraid this is how Terminator started too. Like all of a sudden we want to see that.
I just wanted to hear y'all's thoughts. So I appreciate y'all.
Great call, buddy.
Hey, hold it down in Valdosta.
It's like all of a sudden we're asking just for the computer to be the committee, and 6 years later Skynet's following us around the neighborhood.
Look, if anybody should do it, it should be Elon Musk.
Yeah, we can get him in to solve it. All right, let's go to Michael in Texas. Michael, what's going on, man?
Hey, happy Thursday, fellas.
What's up?
What's up, man?
I made the comment earlier about strength of record, meaning more than strength of schedule, and I wanted to articulate that a little bit as quickly as I could.
Go ahead.
All right. So the way I see it is this. It's kind of like when the first rankings come up before the season, right? You know, it really doesn't matter because at the end of the day, it's how you finish, right? And that's how I view strength of schedule. It's like you look at it, you know, how Texas was, for example, you know, they play Michigan. That's going to be a tough game. Well, now we all know that really wasn't as tough a game as we imagined. And so if you ask Ohio State fans, too, like they look at their record and say, we got to play Indiana before Michigan. You know, that's an easy one. Now they're looking at that, God, we got a tough game now before we play Michigan. And they're probably saying, hey, we got a chance to add on to our resume here. So that's kind of where I was going with that because it's more of at the end of the day, we see how you did and how well you played at the end of the year. And I think that should matter a lot more versus how we think you were going to do at the beginning of the year.
Well, I don't think strength of schedule, if it measures the way that we're talking about, would say that, your preseason strength of schedule is factored in. We're not saying that. Where I agree with you 100%, record matters. Like, if you finish 11-1, that should matter as much as how hard your schedule was. But why can't we just have both? Like, why can't we have 4? Why can't we do your record overall, you're just 10-2, 12-0, whatever it is, your strength of schedule, right? Your margin, your style points, and then that other subjective eye test, which can measure how much better this team was playing at the end of the year than they were at the beginning of the year without overweighting the beginning of the year toward the end of the year. Why can't we just evenly disperse it? I don't understand. To me, that's the easiest thing to do because they're all important.
Well, I guess what I was really trying to say was, and I guess in my view, strength of schedule shouldn't carry as much weight. It's losing my train of thought here. I apologize, but
you're good.
Because again, it's like the beginning. Like I said, the ranking at the beginning of the year, it's not going to matter because you're most likely not going to finish there. So that's kind of because the playoff rankings are the ones that are going to matter at the end.
Yeah, but
so that's how I view it.
Just the preseason ranking strength of schedule shouldn't matter. That should never factor into anything. That's why they don't put out the playoff rankings until we get into the season. But just quickly, Michael, before we go, let me ask you this. If you go 10-2 and you have the 5th hardest strength of schedule and it's calculated right and we know the numbers and we can all agree on how they got to the strength of schedule, is that more impressive than a team with the 106th strength of schedule that finished 11-1?
I would definitely say 10-2 because
you're going against the record mattering more than the strength of schedule. You see what I'm getting at here?
Okay.
You see?
I see. I get you now. But that's why I'll call in and articulate that because I wasn't able to get enough in, so I thought maybe if I broke it down a little bit more, y'all get where I was coming from.
I get where you're coming from, and I think we found kind of a middle ground there.
Appreciate you, Michael.
Thanks, buddy. Love when you call in.
All right, let's go back to Georgia and talk to Maria in Norcross. What's up, Maria?
Oh, Norcross. They play some football over there, too, buddy. And basketball.
Yeah. Anyway, hi, guys. Big fan of the show. I just have a frustration I'd like to vent. I just don't understand why the SEC gets away with playing only 8 conference games. I know they have a hard conference, but the rest of us who have to play 9 games, it just feels like it's always going to create this bottleneck of 10-2s between all these great teams, which means you're going to fix it so that more of them get into the playoffs every year. Which may be the intention.
What a great point.
Yeah.
What a great point. Do you think like the Notre Dames of the world, like the other conferences have been able to point at Notre Dame and say, you're not in a conference and we're going to hold that against you when it comes to postseason play. Do you think other conferences now can say, well, hold on, wait, why is there not a caveat for a conference that plays 1 fewer conference game than we do? And and you can tell, Maria, that's very well articulated because you've acknowledged that, hey, the SEC is playing harder games within their conference, right? Yes. We're not arguing that the SEC is a terrific and dominant conference. But what it does create is this bottleneck, not just for the college football playoff. Not everything is about the college football playoff. I want to see a legitimate SEC champion. And this year, we should have an Ole Miss Alabama head-to-head to take into account. We should have a Texas Tennessee head-to-head, but we don't have those right now, and we're going to get into a tiebreaker.
Well, and Maria, here's a couple things. You know me. I think David agrees with me, and I know Blaine agrees with me. I think overall, it is not a crazy thing to say that the SEC has been the most dominant conference in our lifetime. But I can also recognize that the SEC has problems in the way they go about things. What I don't understand is if we're going to have these power conferences, and there should be a threshold, right? If you have at least 12 teams, every conference should play the same amount of conference games because then everything is equal and you have a baseline to judge everything off of. That's what you think. That's what I think. That's what we think because we're being logical. But let me ask you this. If you were the AD at an SEC school right now, or if you're Greg Sankey, or if you're the head coach at an SEC school right now, and you just looked at the graphic we put up, well, let's save the argument about how they got to strength of schedule. If you just look at what the committee has done and where they put these teams with those numerical values attached to the strength of schedule, if you're trying to do what's best for your business, why would you play that ninth game? If I'm looking at it, because it's about the point of view, because Maria, what happens doesn't affect your investors, right, in this. What happens doesn't affect, right, if we get paid or not, if this team gets in and this team doesn't. But for the people that it does affect, if I'm Greg Sankey and I'm looking at the committee right now, what in that from a smart, because I'm not about fairness, I'm about making money. That's what, like my financial advisor guy, listen, if there's a way that you can stack the deck, right, to make me more money, I don't care if it's fair to everybody else. I could care less.
Does it make more money? The only team that plays only conference that plays 8 conference games? No, it's not. The ACC plays. The
ACC does, but again, the fact that it's different though, the fact that these conferences are different, and listen, the craziest thing, Maria, too, and we appreciate the call, is you got rid of divisions and didn't add another conference game. Mm-hmm. And you could kill 2 birds with one stone. Actually, you could kill 3 birds with one stone, which is what we call a boomerang shot where I'm from. You could eliminate the cupcake week that everybody complains about with the SEC, yet they don't acknowledge that Georgia plays Clemson and Bama always plays somebody good at the beginning, whatever. You could eliminate that. You would eliminate the bottleneck like you're talking about. And I think if the SEC would take the lead on this, it would maybe incentivize the ACC, who has now added more teams and has crossed that number of team threshold, to play a 9-conference game regular season schedule. If they don't, are you 100% sure on that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, all right. So like
there's 18 teams in the ACC and there's 8 conference games.
Yeah, it's Maria, I'm with you. But again, we're not the ones that it affects your pocketbook. So until they do it and they are incentivized to do it, and only the committee can do that, then I don't think they're going to change it. Greg Sankey said they're not going to change it. He came out and said that this year because we were all screaming for it.
And that's why the ACC has a similar problem right now too. When now again, it may work itself out, but we're talking about 3 teams at the top: Miami, Clemson, and SMU, who all will not have a head-to-head against each other in the regular season. And that's why we're talking about these 2 conferences with the potential tie-break scenarios most likely.
Yeah, I agree.
Maria, that was awesome. Thank you.
Great call.
All right, let's go to Kyler in Florida. Kyler, what's going on?
Hey, fellas. Hey, I wanted to talk about the CFP. Y'all got me thinking, especially you, David, when you brought up that point about the analytics not being available. That reminds me of the dang, like I'm a history teacher of the Reformation period. Once they realized everybody could read the Bible and that they were telling them all wrong, then everything started changing. But prior to that, it was, hey, you need to know what we're going to tell you, and what we tell you is the gospel truth. Don't question it. That's what the CFP's doing. That's ridiculous.
Well, but just like the church, they can get away with it.
The government.
Yeah, like
Correct.
they can get away with it. Like, because again, look
Correct.
at the views. Look at college football with all the changes. Think about how confident they must be now. Think about how much, and I don't want to say arrogance, but it's almost like it's foolproof. It's like not only will we just put it in their hands and just shovel it to them and they'll eat it and they'll eat it. Because here's the truth. I'm the same way. I'm going to watch all the games and I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to complain about who's here. I'm going to get upset about the methodology of this. But guess what? When those gays come on, I'm going to be as jacked and tan as everybody else. And therein lies the problem. When there is no threat of people not delivering, there is no change in the way to go about it. So what do? What do? We can't overthrow them. We can't show up with pitchforks and torches. I can't Martin Luther King this thing and put something on a church door and walk away and everybody else just join me. I don't know what to do.
You're giving them money and complaining at the same time.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
It's like McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's bad for you, right? But I'm probably going to go get a double cheeseburger when I leave here. I can complain about how bad it is. I love fried chicken. We're going to deep fry a turkey at Thanksgiving. I hope we deep fry it twice, baby. But at the end of the day, like what? I mean, what's the answer?
This is directly from On3's article today. Although the CFP outsources data from Sports Source Analytics, Executive Director Rich Clark said that data is not available to the public.
Rich Clark. I've never heard that name before until you said it. And that guy is...
They're basically Lockheed Martin.
Yeah.
That's
a
they are.
good point.
They're building weapons that the military won't even see for a while.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling you, the whatever
it's Project Blue Book, dog.
They're Lockheed
It's Project
Martin,
Blue
man,
Book.
I'm telling you.
Oh, appreciate it,
Great
Tyler.
call.
Thanks, man. They put you as Kyler in here, so that's why I'm calling you now. All right, let's go to Jonah in Arkansas. Jonah, what's up?
Jake, I'm asking this question just because I want you to make money here, but why would you waste money betting against a Colorado offense that just hung 42 on a fully healthy Utah defense while giving them 3 turnovers and a Colorado defense who's leading the Big 12 in sacks?
Here is why. Because I have to pick an underdog in locks, leans, and dogs. And there wasn't a lot of... My other one was UAB, dog.
No,
my other one was UAB.
Sell me on it.
No, but
Kansas back-to-back ranked
2008
wins.
Honda.
Here's why.
You sold it in the locks, leans, and dogs segment.
Here's why. Play the motivational music.
Oh,
Play the motivational music.
Now you're about to find out.
Here's why. Because if you click your heels together twice, you're not in Kansas anymore. A couple weeks ago, they clicked their heels together twice. We had a lot of faith in Kansas at the beginning of the year. We were more excited about Kansas football than Kansas basketball. Then they fell off a cliff. Jalen Daniels turning it over. Oh no, they're regressing back to the mean. Devin Neal, NFL running back, maybe the most underrated running back that nobody knows about. And I know Colorado's hot. They just got JuJu Lewis. Prime and them are riding out, and I'm proud of them. And Colorado fans should be proud of them. I think it's really good for the sport, regardless of what you think about Prime. But let me tell you something. I'm sick of people using terms like flyover country or Kansas, even though Colorado's technically in that. I'm sick of people sleeping on Kansas. Jalen Daniels is dynamic too. All right, so it may not be the sexiest pick because sometimes when everybody's swimming to the right, you got to swim left. How do you think I got here?
How you feel about that, Jonah?
Quote, motivational speech.
If I can make one other point, just go ahead and just put another bet on Colorado to cover, and then when that hits, you can just take those winnings to buy those 2 hot chips you'll have to eat when they make the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, that is. And you owe somebody merch.
Look, you think DB Cooper disappeared? They'll never.
Hey, Jonah.
They're giving away houses in Alaska right now.
Jonah, don't forget he's taking Colorado money line, so give me some room on that arc when it really goes down, all right?
Hey, Jonah, how's this thing going to finish, man? How's it going to finish? Talk to me. Is Colorado going to win the Big 12?
Yes, they are.
I wouldn't be
think y'all are right.
surprised.
They're going to face Arizona State, and they'll beat Arizona State.
So you think Arizona State beats BYU?
I do.
Real quick, though. Colorado, they only have one conference loss,
to
right?
Kansas State.
To Kansas State.
So they control their own destiny.
So Kansas State has 2 conference losses. No. Yes.
Kansas State just got killed by somebody.
Kansas State's got 2 conference losses, though. Am I correct?
I'm on it. They might have 3. Hold on.
Yes, sir. They have
losses to BYU, Houston, and Arizona State. They have 3. So even another loss wouldn't trigger.
Did the Arizona State game not count, though? No, not the Arizona State game.
No, that was Arizona.
That was Arizona. So Colorado would have to lose twice for the tiebreaker to kick in. Oh, Kansas State.
But losing to Kansas, and that's what's fascinating because again, someone has to get in from the Big 12.
What's Iowa State at?
Iowa State still has to play Kansas State at the end of the season. Iowa State right now is 8-2 with losses to Texas Tech and Kansas.
So they've got 2 in there, and Iowa State doesn't play Colorado. Common opponent would be Kansas State. So if Colorado lost to Kansas and Iowa State beat Kansas State, would Iowa State go in front of Colorado? We need to.
So what could really be interesting now is if Arizona State, who has the 2 losses, Arizona State has 2 conference losses, beats BYU this weekend to hand them their second conference loss, they would then own the tiebreak over BYU. Okay. And then Colorado, say, drops 1 more to Kansas, won't have a head-to-head opportunity against Iowa State, and both of them could potentially finish 7-2 in the conference.
Man, it's going to get weird, Jonah.
I'm just glad I picked Colorado to win more games than both these guys. Makes me feel better about myself.
Yeah, it's. I've already apologized, so don't clip anything.
Apology not accepted. That's crazy about it. Great call, man.
Appreciate it, Jonah. All right, let's go to Garrett in St. Augustine, Florida, man.
Oh, what a beautiful place.
Love it.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Great, Garrett. How are you?
Good. Hey, Cone, I got a question for you specifically. Where do you have, like, in your top 25, where do you have Army ranked?
Oh, that's a good question. So let's see. Right now, they're ranked, 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th right now in this one. We didn't go past 12 in our rankings this past week. I would have them above some of these 2-loss teams. So I would have them probably right behind Texas A&M, but before Colorado and Clemson. And that's only because I know that they have an opportunity coming up against Notre Dame, which they really can't afford a loss there.
No, especially with the 133rd.
But, I mean, strength of schedule at 133. Again, I'm fine taking into strength of schedule. I just want everyone to know where these numbers are coming from.
That was my whole.
And again, I also, Garrett, I'm just not somebody who freaks out about this stuff with multiple weeks left in the season. We're about to have some awesome games 48 hours from now that are going to impact what happens here at the finale. A week from now, we're going to have more awesome games. Texas A&M. Then we're going to have a week of conference championship games. So we still have 3 weeks left in a season where one single game can change the outcome of all of this.
David, let me ask you this, and Garrett, I want you to answer after David answers. If Army goes undefeated and beats Notre Dame and Boise State wins the rest of their games and only one group of 5 team gets in, who should get in?
Army.
I agree.
Army, because you would have a win over Notre Dame, right? Who's ranked right up there with Oregon. Boise State's lost by 3 to Oregon can be impressive as long as there's no other group of 5 team who's unbeaten with just as impressive of a loss. The question we asked before the season was, what if Liberty does it with no impressive win? That, to me, is a different conversation, and I'll give you a second reason, because I think that the College Football Playoff Committee would love to put in a service academy because it's pretty much uncriticizable.
For sure. That's a good point. Garrett, what say you?
I'm with David. It's got to be Army if they beat Notre Dame this week. And then one more question, and I'll let you guys move on. Do you guys think, like David, you were talking about, if Clemson loses to the Citadel this week? I agree. If they lose the Citadel this week, that has to affect Georgia's strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, I know they're already number 1 strength of schedule, but let's say, I know there's a bunch of crap that has to work itself out, but let's say Clemson ends up winning the ACC, that has to help Georgia at the end too.
It should.
It would have to boost them even more.
Yeah. No, you're talking about if Clemson wins the ACC?
Right. If Georgia has a 31-point win over the ACC champion.
Same thing both ways, right?
The weird thing is, what if Clemson loses to South Carolina? They're 9-3, still find a way in the ACC championship game, and then win it.
Yeah. Well, caveat here, Blaine. Can you pull up Penn State's schedule real quick? Garrett, listen to this, because I think this goes into, this is what I want to see. This is what I want to know. So Indiana right now has the 106th strength of schedule. They're about to play Ohio State. Penn State has the 35th ranked strength of schedule. They've already played Ohio State. Blaine, read to me Penn State's schedule real quick minus Ohio State.
All right, at West Virginia, Bowling Green at home, Kent State at home, Illinois at home, UCLA at home, at USC, at Wisconsin, Ohio State at home, Washington home, at Purdue. Then you're going to finish with at Minnesota and Maryland at home.
Here's who Indiana's is outside of Ohio State. FIU, Western Illinois, at UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, at Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, at Michigan State, Michigan. You're going to play Ohio State, and then you get Purdue. So by that, those schedules are decently similar outside of Ohio State. So if Indiana plays Ohio State and they lose by 7, you would think that Indiana would finish for a top 40 schedule, right? If Penn State's is sitting at 35. So that one game can move you up almost 75 spots?
You know what? This gets me thinking now that you're talking about that, because there's been so much SEC fury about how many of these Big Ten teams are in the top 5 here, and they're talking about strength of schedule. But Penn State lost their biggest game by, what was it, 7 points at home. Texas lost their biggest game by 15 points at home. And I'm looking right now at Texas with a 38 by their logo and Penn State with a 35, which means they have a harder strength of schedule. Why is Penn State not ahead of Texas here? I don't hear that argument being made at all.
I agree with that.
It makes no sense.
And this is coming from someone who I don't even think Penn State right now is a top 5 team. I mean, they still need to prove it to me. But if that's what we're going on,
but it's and again, think about the jump. Think about what this affects. If there is one game, if you're going to play the number 2 team, right, and your schedule can jump up, because those schedules outside of Ohio State for Indiana and Penn State are very, very similar. Very, very similar. Not just who you're playing, but where you're playing them. So you mean to tell me one game can jump you up 75 spots? Just one. That's why I go back to the Army argument that Garrett brought up. Because if they're sitting at 133 and they beat the number 6 team, and you're going to jump up Penn State 75 spots for that, how many spots is Army going to jump up?
Yeah,
100?
we need to print this off each week for the next couple weeks and see how it fluctuates based on opponents.
That's a great call.
Appreciate it, Garrett. Thanks so much. Call in next week, man. All right, let's go to Caveman 2.0 in Alabama. What's up, man? Caveman.
I'm here.
What's up, man? I know not great reception in that cave like Bin Laden, but they found him.
That's all right. I'm hiding pretty far away. So all I want is the Rebels to take care of business on my birthday, which is Saturday. We got to make sure that we don't show up like we have in the past. But I think moving forward, as long as Lane keeps his mouth shut, we'll be fine.
Well, he already didn't. But I do. Is this where that we always talk about sometimes a loss can be the best thing that could happen to you? Is this where maybe that Kentucky loss was? We talked about, hey, Florida beating LSU, best thing could happen to Ole Miss. Now you can't overlook them. But how many times, if I'm Lane Kiffin, I am literally putting the score of the Kentucky game everywhere around the facility, everywhere around it this week. So maybe in some warped backwards world, losing to a bad Kentucky team at home could have been the best thing possible to happen to Ole Miss. I don't know.
Honestly, it probably was one of the better things that happened this season. Although I will say this, too. That South Carolina win by us is looking pretty good right now.
It is.
Not only a win,
but also that LSU loss is looking worse by the second.
So, Caveman, do you want Ole Miss to play in the SEC championship game? Are you confident you could move forward and beat anyone in the conference?
The competitor in me wants us to go to the SEC championship and take care of business. But in reality, I don't see that happening and playing out the way I think it would or want it to.
So, well, is the risk worth the reward? Is the risk worth it to you because we don't know how the committee is going to treat a loser of a conference championship, regardless of what they say in the press?
Then no, the risk is not worth the reward.
Man. And Ole Miss has never played in Atlanta and won the SEC. That's just, and look, I'm not saying you're wrong.
It's one of those heart to head things, right? Your heart's telling you love her, your brain's telling you to let her go. So, look, man, I get it.
That sounds super purse right now.
Yeah.
Wow, look at David. All right. Purse. We're growing.
Yeah,
yes.
Right.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody, for calling in.
Great
call.
All
over. If you're still on the line, call in tomorrow on Flaming Dragon Friday.
I'm not going to be here, but I hope it's fun.
You'll be here in spirit.
You'll be here in spirit.
I'll be flying around.
The dragon never leaves. You only leave the dragon. All right, bets. Tonight, listen, I'm going to go and give you a quick Steelers-Browns preview. The Browns suck. Steelers, -2.5. That's going off at -162. And then, guys, Bama came through for your boy last night. Beat Illinois by 13, put 100-piece with some Cajun fries and a honey biscuit. So give me Texas. Q-Smote, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry, dog, but I've watched Syracuse play. Melo's kid isn't there yet. Give me Texas -11 at -108 tonight. I just don't think Syracuse is there.
All right, I'm going to take a same-game parlay. Yes, did I promise you, Blaine, I was going to stay away from these, but I'm back to my old ways. Steelers money line plus the under in the game, 45.5. That's -115 on the odds. And then Browns, TTP, under 16.5.
Maybe the best bet on the play.
-1.
It's just I can't play Nick Chubb this week, right?
No.
I can't play him.
No.
I can't do it. All right, bring my bets up there. Look, give me George Pickens, the villain of the NFL, anytime touchdown that's going off at plus 210. And look, I'm going with the Browns, all right? It's going to be 30 degrees
What is
out.
wrong with you?
Probably less than that. Jameis Winston's coldest game of his career. I think they lose by a field goal plus 3.5.
It is the NFL.
Minus 115. The Browns' defense is still really good.
Yeah. All right, these bets aren't as out there. I thought maybe, with the way that Ace operates, he's going to take Nick Chubb to blink 11 times for the first snap. It's going to go Georgia Tech tonight at home. They've got NC State. Talk about falling off a cliff. That's minus 8.5. That's minus 110. Then Steelers, first to 15 points, because if anybody's going to score 15 points, it's definitely the Steelers.
Chris Boswell.
That's at minus 135. What did he kick? 6 field goals last week?
5.
Something crazy. If you had him in fantasy, you absolutely
The boss, baby.
Stacked him.
All right, let's get these donations. If you donated today, guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Let's go to a $5 donation from our long-lost brother, Nathan Crain. Says, if Ryan Day loses to a team with 106 strength of schedule, he better learn the different kinds of fries and the proper way to put them in a bag.
Well, Nathan, I get what you're saying, but just, hey, don't bring that lima salad to the family reunion again this year. Nobody liked that.
Let's go to a $5 donation from Gabriel. What's up, Gabe? I know we are but what are the chances my Sooners upset Bama? If so, do our fans storm the field? Love the show, fellas. Keep it rolling.
So I know he definitely didn't say but.
Don't even storm the field if you beat them. Don't even storm
I love
the
it.
field.
I'm
Good
PG
save
over
by
here.
you.
Just say we're built like this.
Here's what I think this Oklahoma game may look very similar to the Georgia-Clemson game at the beginning of the year. I would not be shocked, because Alabama, I don't think, is going to be able to line up and do to Oklahoma what they did to LSU with Jalen Milroe, Power Reed, Jam Miller jamming it up in there. Justice Haynes bringing justice for everybody on offense in Alabama. But eventually that dam is going to break. The water hits the wall until there's a crack in it, and then it starts bleeding through. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're down 7.
What's your final score, Jake?
I love the under. I love the under that Cone took. I'm going to say Bama 23, Oklahoma 10. That's what I think it's going to be.
34. What'd I take the under at?
46.5, right?
46.5? Oh, no.
34.
So it might have been
we like 31, 30.
Okay, guys, make sure y'all clip
13.
that. Make sure you clip that just in case Oklahoma wins. We have some fun next week.
No, look, Oklahoma could win the game. And if y'all do win the game, okay, if you really want to be embraced by the SEC, don't storm the field. Don't storm the field. Leave out of there mad because you've had such a disappointing season. How embraced will they be?
You should do the opposite of storm the field. Everybody should just run out of the stadium.
Yeah. But
just
we're
storm
still
outside
mad.
of
It's
the
still
stadium.
unacceptable, but we're happy today.
The reverse storm, and they don't fine you for that. Hell, they may pay you for that.
$5 donation from The Meme. He says the Notre Dame Cathedrals in Paris has been restored. They're set to open back up Sunday, December 8th, a.k.a. College Football Selection Sunday. #Trust the signs.
Yep, I know. Here come the jokes. I saw it while they were rebuilding it. It is insane. It is so big. I kept looking for Quasimodo, but I couldn't find him.
$5.
Turned out it was just a homeless guy that was cross-eyed.
$5 donation from 2 Crains, 1 Cone. Good to see you back in here, man. If Ohio State loses and Texas loses to A&M, what 2-loss team gets left out? I'm here for the violence. Jake still owes me merch. Go Irish.
Boy, you sure you loved reading that? I promise.
I got merch playing.
Why do we keep? Can I say? Why do we keep comparing Ohio State 10-2 to Texas 10-2? They are not built the same. Ohio State beat Penn State. Texas doesn't have a win like that.
Hey man, Vanderbilt.
I don't think. Maybe we're comparing them because they're big brands. But I don't think if I'm on the committee, I'm like, look, Ohio State's in, Texas is out. Mm-hmm. But, when they look at it, I don't know. I don't know if the words Texas is out is allowed to be said in that.
But again, how does it fluctuate if, say, Penn State goes on the road and loses to Minnesota?
That's a different story.
Right? Does that win look as good for the Buckeyes then?
That's a different story to me.
All right, let's go to a $20 donation from TJ. What's up, man? It says, Tim, excuse me. Ohio State fired Cooper, who won 10 games every year and lost Michigan 9 times. My inside info, if Day doesn't win against Michigan or doesn't make a national final, he is gone. OSU has the money.
Or both. Tim. Or see, this is where or and really come into play here. Like, do you have to do one or the other? Or do you have to do both? Do you have to this and this or this or this? Mm-hmm. That's I think where the line's getting drawn.
Let's go to Miller with a $5 donation. Rank every team 1 through 134. Difference between 25 and 26 is votes, and that is it.
Well, you do need a cutoff of like a ranking. You needs to be a top 25. It can't just be a top 134. But I'm with you. And they should have them. On these numbers, we can't see. Behind door number 2 is the strength of schedule for, their strength of record, whatever, for team 128. I mean, in order to be able to rank the top 25, you have to rank 134, right? You can't just do some of them because you got to count, if you're the 134th team, that's got to weigh different than if you're the 97th team. So you're having to do it anyway. Why not just do it?
Who's 134 right now? Kent State?
They're 135.
Yeah. There's
my Thanksgiving football team.
Yeah, North Dakota State's 134.
Didn't
they're
you
not
say
even
their coach. Hold on, who told me something about their coach?
So I saw on social media, and again,
allegedly,
that Kent State is not only 0-11, but their coach is getting sued because he's like $25,000 in credit card debt or something.
No.
It's just
why weren't you just betting against your own team?
You want to talk about making it that quick?
Look, and I don't know if y'all heard about this. Have y'all heard anything about Kalen DeBoer and a player?
I don't know if that's true. You talking about why the Keanu kid is?
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Apparently, he sent his daughter something that wasn't. Which you want to talk about? You want to talk about the quickest way? Like I always say, I'll never put my hands on a player, but if you send my daughter a message like that, and allegedly, I don't know if he did or if he didn't. That is not. Can you imagine somebody sending Saban's daughter that? No way. No way that thought would even cross your mind.
Yeah, let's not bring up Saban's daughter before we get hit by lightning or just all pass out at the same time. $5 donation from Cyber Proxy says, feels like the committee only cares about 2 metrics, branding and losses. Swap the Ole Miss loss with the FCS win, and Georgia would be a top 4 team.
Yeah. I don't think you're wrong.
Say it one more time, Blake.
All right, let's go to $5 donation from Cyber Proxy. I talk fast. Sorry. It feels like the committee only cares about 2 metrics, branding and losses. Swap the Ole Miss loss with the FCS win, and Georgia would be a top 4 team.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of bars right there.
Yeah, like that makes sense. That porridge is just right.
Let's go to $5 donation from Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. Speaking of storming the field, did y'all see the GT student get wrecked by the Miami offensive lineman?
No, listen,
I did
always
not,
say,
but I would
if
love
you're
to.
going to storm the field, you are taking your safety in your own hands. So,
you signed the waiver.
You signed the waiver. If you're going to storm the field, that doesn't mean anybody can just pull out a gun and shoot you, but you did this, right? So you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
$5 donation from Nova. What's up, man? Reed went into the swamp and beat Florida as a freshman. He will go into Auburn and do the same. Gig him.
I mean, I think y'all are going to win.
We beefing, dog, or what?
I mean,
are we beefing? Is there a problem?
I mean, I'm not arguing.
It's a good bet, man. I'm definitely probably going to lose that one. All right, $5 donation from David. Appreciate it, David. If Indiana does beat Ohio State, shouldn't that say more about Indiana than it does about Ohio State?
Yes.
Shouldn't it prove that Indiana is legit?
Yes.
All right, I believe that is all the donation. No, we got another one here. $5 donation from SG. What's up, man? Y'all broke my heart not betting on Army to cover our dog win, especially you, Jake. I'm riding off this cliff or into the sunset without you.
Blaine took Army to cover, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
No, you took Indiana to cover.
I took Indiana and all.
Hey, we got man.
Look, man.
We still got tomorrow's show, okay? So, look.
I want y'all to win. I want all the group of 5 teams to win. Y'all just go win. You can all get in the playoff, have a great time. Who cares about anybody else? Right?
Blaine is the biggest politician ever.
What if all the top 12 teams were group of 5, but we said no, y'all can't play in the 12-team playoff because y'all didn't want your own playoff, so all 12 of y'all can't be in there.
See, now that's just a different type.
Yeah. How about
Blaine's
that?
Listen, I know I said I wanted to ban fracking, but I thought about it. Let's frack it up, boys.
You just shouldn't get an automatic bid. That's the only thing I'm saying. You just shouldn't get it. If you're a good enough team, if you're a top 12 team in the nation, Boise State doesn't need the automatic bid.
Do you believe? Okay,
Boise State's right now ranked the top 12 team in the nation, so they're going to put you in.
So let me ask you this though.
Okay.
So if you believe that the group of 5 should not get an automatic bid, do you believe anybody else should get an automatic bid?
Nope.
So you don't believe there should be any automatic bids?
Nope.
What if I told you that you
want to
took
turn it more over to the committee?
Yeah. So
more over to the shadows.
We just got to change the committee. All right, that's the first step. Let me do it.
Well,
all right, not the guys from Lockheed and Martin.
Then my follow-up was going to be, what if you took the top 4 conferences like we do now, and the 4th conference is a group of 5 that gets an automatic bid? Would you still think the group of 5 shouldn't get an automatic bid?
I don't want anybody to get an automatic bid.
Okay, there you go.
That's
right,
I want everyone. We're trying to pigeonhole it.
I'm not trying to pigeonhole you.
I want more automatic bids.
I'm not trying to. All right, poll.
Oh.
Will Ryan Day be the head coach of Ohio State next year? Yes.
Yes.
Or no?
Yes.
Yes. 85%.
5%.
What was yours?
65%.
Huh?
Yours was 75. Yours was 65.
Well, mine's 67% now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Yes, 76%.
Gosh, no,
24%.
David said 65%. We all heard it. All right, we appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Got a great show for you tomorrow on Flamin' Dragon Friday. Some big-time matchups, some good football tonight, some good college basketball tonight, some NFL tonight as well. It is a full pot, and we are glad to help you eat it. And like the chances of me trusting the committee when we can't see the numbers or the conversation, we're going. That would have. I'm so worried about hitting my coffee. Gone. Get out of here. Get out. Bye. I love you guys. Bye.